Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I am Kyra Mitchell Lewis, and thank you for joining. How's life treating everyone? Well, I'm good personally. I'm working, staying focused, and just staying busy inside. I can't believe we are approaching the month of September and we are heading into fall, which is one of my favorite seasons. Yes, I love pumpkin. I love pumpkin spice lattes. I love pumpkin muffins. I love pumpkin bread. Just give me all the pumpkin, please. So, how are my parents and students doing out there? I want to just salute everyone that's a teacher, that's a parent, that is virtually teaching at home. Stay focused out there on your goals ahead and just crush them. And if you are a student that is learning in person or a teacher that is teaching back in the schools, please stay safe. We are keeping you all in our thoughts and prayers as you transition into this new school year. Now, today we are talking about the power of words. A lot of words have been used to describe 2020, from our feelings on coronavirus to reopening schools, on wearing masks, racial injustice, the election, and on and on. But do we truly think about the weight of our words? Do we think about the effect on not only others, but ourselves? Robert Sharma said, "Words can inspire and words can destroy. Choose yours well." And Proverb 18 states, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it and indulge it will eat its fruit and bear the consequences of their words." Net, people, words kill, words give life. They're either poison or they're fruit. You get to decide. My guest today and I will talk about why what we say and how we say it matters even more today, and how she uses her platform and words as a way to encourage and support those who need it most. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I am Kyra. Today we are joined by a storyteller, author, blogger, TED speaker, all-around compassionate and amazing person, and creator of the global letter writing platform, More Love Letters. Welcome, Hannah Brencher, to the podcast.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here.
I know, I'm sitting on the inside like, yay!
I love it. I'm so pumped. And best way to spend a Friday.
Exactly. And I always make fun of myself on the podcast because I'm always excited, and I always say I'm excited. And I was like, I know people are probably like, man, she's always so excited about everything. But I am really excited. And I'm excited because I get to talk to wonderful people like you.
Totally.
And
yeah.
So again, thank you for joining today, and we're going to go ahead and we'll dive on in because there's a lot of story here with Hannah. So if you can start, Hannah, by just talking about your journey, and I definitely want to hear how you ended up in Atlanta, being from New England.
Well, where do I start? I would say it has definitely been a full journey, and one that I can't say that I expected like any bit of it, which is usually how the best stories happen. But so I am from New England. That's where I was born and raised, went to college in Massachusetts, and moved to New York City right after college. And I was working for a human rights organization at the United Nations. I was very passionate about just humans in general and in like human rights, and that the fact that every child should be able to grow up and have a future, that people should have access to clean water and education and all of these things. And so I thought that was my 5-10 year plan. But I learned very quickly that New York City was not the city for me. I felt very depressed and very isolated. And so as a result of that, as I'm sure we'll get into, I started writing letters and leaving them around New York City, something that I thought was pretty basic. I didn't really ever think I could build a company off of it. I definitely didn't think it would lead to all the places I've been to now. But long story short, it ended up blowing up and going viral, and it led to a variety of different things. It led to a TED Talk and a book deal and a blog that I've been blogging at for the last 10 years. And so I know that you asked about how did I end up in Atlanta, and that's just another thing that I wasn't ever anticipating or expecting. I honestly don't even think I knew much about Atlanta, except that I love watching the show Catfish, and they say that Atlanta is the catfish capital of the country.
Yeah. We have quite a few episodes that have come through Atlanta.
Yes, and that was all I knew about Atlanta. And so I remember like when I visited Atlanta for a conference, and because I knew a girl from social media in Atlanta, and every time that I kept coming back to Atlanta, though, there was just something inside of me that just made me want to stay and figure this place out and figure out what was it that was like so magical about Atlanta, and a variety of different things. And I felt like God was making it really clear that I needed to pack up my life and move. And I'm sure everybody around me in Connecticut thought like, she has lost her mind. What is she doing? Mm-hmm. She's just moving to a city without knowing anybody there. And I am 6 years into that journey, and I can confidently say that like Atlanta is totally 100% my city in the way that I had always wanted New York to be, but it never was. And now I live here and we own a home. I've been married for the last few years, and we just had a baby 4 months ago.
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. New mom.
Yep.
How's that going?
It's great. I mean, we're very lucky to have like a baby that like sleeps. So she slept through the night since she was 3 weeks old. And so I'm like, man, you can really do anything if you're not sleep deprived.
Right.
So, but it's been a really sweet season. And, we feel really lucky that like in the midst of just like crazy COVID, like it's almost like an extended maternity leave. Like people don't really have many expectations for people in COVID. And so it's allowed us to just really kind of be home with her and just see her at this young of an age.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you said something, the expectation, there's, less expectation, but also to your point, while what thrust us into this season that we're in is horrible, but at the same time, it's been a blessing on the other side. This time we'll never get back. We'll never have this opportunity again to reconnect and to just reassess and all those things in our life. So it has definitely, I think, you probably hear a lot of people say 2020 is the year I didn't know I need. And I know I've said that a lot on this podcast, but I'm like, totally. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's like hard, but at the same time, I'm like, obviously I'm not in any way belittling people that are in very dire need because of COVID. But like, I think it really has forced us to put things into perspective and really ask ourselves, okay, like what have I either gained or lost through COVID that I do not want to go back to after this is over, And so, I mean, I've learned so much about myself and my family, and like, I was traveling a lot for speaking before COVID, and I haven't done any traveling this year, and I've loved it. I've loved being home and being with my people. And I'm like, okay, how do I make that happen more when all of this goes back to like, well, I guess like a new normal?
Exactly. Yeah. And I do like that you said a new normal, not the normal, yep. Not what we were before, because, I, right when we all like started working from home and we started actually sheltering in place, I remember writing a blog about, just the sacrifices, not really, we're only being asked to stay home.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't asked to go like fight in a war. We weren't all like put on a truck and driven somewhere and put in one place to be quarantined together. Like, we're getting the quarantine from our nice homes, and we have cable and Wi-Fi and all these, things, nice things that we can just be sitting in our house. So yeah, I definitely, so I wrote something about like just taking the time, like really just let's not talk about what we can't do. Let's talk about what we can do, and rediscovering, relationships and forming new relationships. I mean, I've been able to meet so many people during this time, and Zoom. I've been just Zooming myself crazy. So I really love that. So now, have you always been a storyteller, Hannah?
Always, yes. I definitely, like, we have, like, how like moms keep like old keepsakes and stuff. There's all these like journals that she's kept of mine that, like, before I was even writing coherent words, I was just scribbling in notebooks and creating books. So from my earliest memories, I know that when I was 6 years old, my grandmother told me I was going to write books. And that was that. I don't know what prompted her to say that to me, but from that point forward, that was always my goal, what I wanted more than anything, what I felt like I was put on this earth to do. And so I've always had it in my bones, like just that creative energy. I started writing novels when I was 9 years old, and I would spend all year working on this book, and then my mom and me would like go and get it printed and bound, and I would give it to all my family members for Christmas gifts. And these were not like sweet little novels. They were pretty like dark. I always wrote like murder stories and like little girls being abducted. I don't even know what was going on. Like, but somebody should have sent me to a guidance counselor. Because
were you watching Lifetime, Hannah?
Well, so I mean, I grew up with an obsession with the JonBenet Ramsey murder case. Obsession is probably a light way of saying it. And that is another thing that I really had like a connection with my grandmother. She kind of introduced me to that. And like, when I'm telling you, like, I had like file folders. I have read every book on this case. And so I think that kind of just bled into the writing that I was creating.
Right.
Which is just, I don't even know. But you know what? I look back and I think like, man, I'm thankful that my mom like didn't steer me away from like these kind of quirky passions. Like, I'm thankful that she wasn't like, oh no, you can't write that, or like, you can't read that book. Like, she allowed me to explore and just be fully who I was. And like, that's been such a blessing to me, because I hope I can pass that on to my daughter. And it saved me from an identity crisis later in life, because I always grew up thinking like, well, these things might be a little bit weird, but like, that's just me. It's just how I was made.
Right. Yeah. No, that's really important. Is to just sort of give that. I love that your mom gave you that path. Like, she helped you. She didn't just, totally. She took you out, she let you write, she took you out, she bound your book, help you get them published, so to speak.
Yes.
And then, and then gift them. So I think that's really important. And it's so important to a child to know that they have that support.
You're so right. You are so right.
Yeah. So obviously you've come a long way from writing those murder mysteries. And
I'm gonna go back one day.
And you know what? And you should, because I do think, we all enjoy that. Like, I love trying to figure out like who did it.
Right?
Who did it? Who's the killer?
I wonder where that obsession came from though, because it's like,
I have no idea. I think but we're well-rounded people because we like all things.
Yes.
We like murder mystery. We like catfish, because I
never met a catfish episode that I didn't love.
Oh my God. And I know right now I have some on my DVR since the new season.
Yes.
You can't watch catfish like off the side of your desk. Like, you've got to be focused.
You got to be invested.
Yeah. And
I'm amazed that it's still happening. Like, haven't people clued in that like you shouldn't catfish, you're gonna end up on this show?
I know. And every time, we watch an episode, my husband goes, I can't believe that these people are still getting catfished. And I'm like, but then I also try to tell him, I'm like, yeah, but you got to think about it. Like, these people know, like deep down inside, they know that the person they're talking to isn't that person. I said, but there's this feeling of, wanting to be connected to someone. I said, it takes empathy to like really watch that show. Cause I'm like,
Yes.
I always feel my heart always goes out to them, even if they do look like they're, they're sending money and they're doing all these things. I'm like, they really are just trying to find a connection.
It's so true, because I am such a reality TV junkie, and my husband is like, how do you watch some of this stuff? And I'm like, no, but like, I watch because I'm actually invested in the people. Like, I'm invested in seeing them find love through roses on TV. And
yes!
I want the person on the other side of the screen to not be the catfish. But
exactly.
And I don't know, like, I just keep hoping humans are going to win.
Right. Every time I'm like, please, like, no, could it really be? Whenever there's a catfish episode and they're actually, whenever they're actually the person, I'm like, oh, thank you. But I mean, so I'm exactly. So I'm sure you watch Love Is Blind too, right?
Oh yes. I saw those people walking across an intersection in Decatur, and I was like screaming in my car because I was like, oh my gosh, it's them, but I'm not going to be that person.
Oh my God. Yes. I remember when it came out and I was at work and it kept telling people about it and nobody would watch. Like nobody, I was like, no guys, seriously. I was like, no, like seriously, this is really good because it takes away like the physical attraction. Like these people are falling for people like behind a wall and they're like, how can they be talking about they love somebody after 5 days? I'm like, but think about it. If you only talk to a person for 5 days straight without your cell phone, without the internet, without any distraction, it is quite possible to know what you know. I said, like, you know what you know when you know when you've met the right person.
Yep.
So yes, that show, I love that enough. So, and of course, Cameron and Lauren were my favorites and was so excited.
They were walking across the intersection.
Oh my God, I love them. They were the best.
And I've loved, if you've seen the memes that are like, what's wrong with 2020? It's the fact that Jessica is 34 and Mark is 24. And I'm like, yes.
Oh my God. And no, I was like, bless her heart, because if there were ever a person that was just like the reality show villain,
I know. And then like to find out that like Mark was cheating the whole time. I'm like, come on. I can't.
Yeah, I know. I was like, we were rooting for you, Mark. Okay.
We were.
No, and now we're just like not. So sorry that we digress.
Sorry, I will take you down any reality TV rabbit hole.
I know. I love it. I mean, I am all for those shows because I'm like, you know what? It's not my life, but it's somebody's life, and it's a good time for me to watch. But the fact that you are, very well-rounded in your approach to writing, but I know that, just from being a follower of your work, and you say something that I read on your site, that you have been filling the space with words for the brokenhearted and the defeated, and for the hopeful and crazy dreamers. And there's something very like just about that, because I consider myself to be a dreamer. Like I've been dreaming since I was a child. And so that is why I feel there's this connection to your work. When did you realize that God was putting this plan in place for your life to, sort of be this encourager for people?
I think that, like I grew up like not how would I say it? I grew up in like church, but when I hit my teens, that was really when my mom kind of gave us the ability to kind of just go off on our own and figure it out however we wanted to. So if we didn't want to go to church anymore, we didn't have to go to church anymore. And I kind of was like, yeah, no, I'm done. You know, I always thought that a God was there, but I didn't know if he was necessarily for me. And the one thing that I remember always just like connecting with God on, or kind of talking to my ceiling in the hopes that God was up there, was this idea of like, I have always felt like I was made for bigger things. And I didn't know how to reconcile that with like this small town that I was living in and just kind of the way of life around me. And I just didn't know, because no one in my life was talking about bigger things. And I'm like, okay, was I made wrong? Like, why is it that I feel like I was meant to do big things? And so that was always in me. But I would say that like things started to actually come into motion probably when I was a senior in college. And that was when I created a blog. And at that time, blogging was like the thing to do. And I had a good girlfriend of mine who just was like, you know what, like you're writing these kinds of things like all the time, like you should create a blog. And I started writing, and honestly, like that blog has been the catalyst for everything that I've done since then, but it's still like 10 years later, my absolute favorite thing, my favorite space online. And so I would say that like, that's really where I figured out what my voice was. I started to grow it. I don't think that I could have ever even like written books or do what I'm doing now online, because without taking that time to sow into something from this day, like still to this day, like it doesn't make a dime. Like I don't make a dime on that blog, but it's still my favorite thing and my number one thing.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I love that. And I also love what you said about, you know, being in a small town, being from a small town. I'm from a small town as well. And wondering if there's something wrong with you because you have bigger dreams.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's that girl, you might have said a word right there.
Yeah, and it's tough, you know, because I think it took me a long time to understand that, or to like get a grip on why I was feeling that way, because I think for a long time I resented where I was from, even though there was nothing wrong with where I came from. And there's nothing wrong with people that choose to stay in the small town they grow up in. And for a long time, I think there was a bitterness inside of me of like, of course I have to leave. I have to get away. I cannot be here anymore. And my mom really helped me put that into perspective of like, you know, like a lot of people don't see it the way that you see it, you know, and for a lot of people, like this is home and that's okay too. And so I would say in my 20s was kind of like this wrestling between wanting a rooted life, but at the same time wanting to pack up a suitcase and leave every chance that I could get.
No, I definitely think I agree with you. And I think there are a lot of people that feel that way. And there's not, like you said, there's nothing wrong with, you know, staying in a small town if you want to, you know, build a life there. But also if you are the person that wants to explore and just sort of see what's out there, you owe that to yourself, because
Totally.
no one wants to have, you know, live with the regret of, and I feel like that's what you know, that you don't live a life of regret. You're going to,
you're right. You're so right.
and I love that, because so many people, you know, wish that they could take risk and they would just go after it. I mean, okay, we're going to start moving into your time in New York now. You went to New York and, you know, took an intern or dream job, what you thought was your dream job.
Yep, totally.
And didn't turn out like you expected, but it did lead to you walking into purpose.
Yes.
So that is more love letters. And so I want you to just talk about that story. Just talk about New York, and how did you get to writing letters to strangers, and when you decided to take this thing into a global platform?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that I fell into a depression pretty quickly when I moved to New York City. Just a lot of like isolation and loneliness, and it's crazy that it can be such a populated city and yet you can feel so alone. And so for me, the way that my mom has always communicated with me was through letter writing, and so I still can't fully explain it, but my way of just processing my feelings was by picking people out of the crowd and writing letters to them. And really, like, it went from picking out specific people, though I never had the courage to give them the letter, to just writing letters in general to leave around New York City, because it felt like this very like cathartic process of like I could just get it out of me and I could let it go, because like there was so much on top of the loneliness. I felt like there was so much shame that I was dealing with, because I felt guilty of like, but this is my dream job. Like, this is it right here. And it's not enough. It doesn't make me happy, And so I think that the letter writing was a way of just kind of coping and processing and figuring out what I felt. But on that little blog that I had at the time, I blogged about the letters. I wrote about the letters, and I basically told anybody that like, if you needed a letter, I would write to you. And so I thought that I was going to get a few responses from people. I would write a few letters. We would move on with our lives. And I got hundreds of letter requests. They did not stop coming, no matter how much I tried to change the subject. I spent the next 9 months writing a little close to 400 letters to people all over the world before I ever started More Love Letters. So that was the foundation for it.
That's pretty awesome. Now,
that's God. That's God.
Yes. And when you obviously when you were writing all the letters, what did people say back? Like, what were the responses back to you?
Well, it's surprising. A lot of people didn't ever write back to me. And I mean, it wasn't trying to like create a pen pal system. So I guess in a lot of ways, I'm thankful that they didn't write back. But a lot of those initial stories that came in my inbox were people that were dealing with a lot of the things that I was dealing with, loneliness and depression, and what is my place in this world, and why am I here? And it was a lot of young women that were just like me, and they had everything at their fingertips, and yet it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And so I felt like at that time, like I really felt like God kind of like pulled the veil for me to realize I was not the only one dealing with this loneliness and this sadness, and that I could help people through the power of words. And so I'd already been doing that on the blog, but then this was kind of just like that extra push. And I never thought, like, I'm still amazed by the traction of More Love Letters, or how people fall in love with it when they find it for the first time. Because to me, I'm like, but it's a no-brainer. And like, I can't be the first one that's ever come up with this, but apparently I am. So that's kind of crazy. But really at the bones of it, like what I hope people know about More Love Letters is that it is about people, and it is about the fact that being a human is hard, and we have the power to come alongside one another and encourage one another. And it's not about stamps and stationery, but to me, those things, writing a physical, tangible letter, to me, that speaks volumes in a digital world where we are just so connected, and yet our phones create so much disconnect for us.
Yes, I agree with that. And yeah. And yeah, I think too, like you said, with the letter, I think people I know it helps me to write things down. And I think that with a letter, people can be more free I feel more free to be open and more vulnerable versus when people are just, talking to someone on a text or sending an email. Even emails tend to just be, pretty short. Let me just say this and send. So I think when you take to paper, it just feels like there's a world there that you're just like, it's just like when you read. I mean, you read to escape and to dream, and so even writing letters can feel that way, and especially when you're writing a letter because someone needs encouragement. And I think that during this time, especially this year, I mean, I'm pretty sure you've probably have you seen just the influx in your requests for letters during COVID during this year?
Yes. And I mean, honestly, like there's always like a pretty steady like ebb and flow of those letter requests, but I think that more than ever people need hope and they need encouragement. And I feel like also like we've just seen an increase of people that are so desperate to do something, to matter in some way, and this is a really easy way that you can get involved at a time where like maybe you don't have the money to give to an organization and we can't show up in person the way that we used to show up. And so this is something you can do safely from home that is going to impact people.
No, it's amazing. I mean, and just even when you go to the site and you read the request for the letter, like immediately your heart is just like, wow, like let's just love on this person. Let's just let them know that someone that we care, that we understand, because at different times we all go through things. And I like what you said about, you said at first, like you felt guilty for, feeling a certain way, feeling sad or feeling down because you had everything at your fingertips. But I'm really glad that, you're able, just like, I mean, I experience that sometimes myself when I'm like, oh man, like I'm just, this is not it. Like, I don't know, I'm in a funk. And then, I'm like, okay, God, I'm sorry. But then I think I've found the balance of just being okay with like saying, God, this is how I feel like right now. Like, I feel this way. It doesn't mean that I'm not thankful, that I know I'm blessed. I'm thankful for what I have, but my heart feels this way today. And I have to honor, you have to honor those emotions still, because if you don't, then, you can end up in a worse place, to be honest. So totally. I really like that you honored that, you acknowledged, how you felt.
Yeah, totally. I think it's important. Yeah.
Now, do you write letters to I know you have a baby. And are you writing letters to her? Like, are you doing anything like that while she's young, or will you just start to foster that with her as she, gets a little bit older?
Oh yeah, she's got so many letters already. It's funny because like even in I've been writing letters to her for years in the same way that like before I met my husband Lane, I was writing letters to him. And when we got married, the night before we got married, I gave him a box of letters that I had written over the years to him. And so that's just always been my way of kind of like communicating. And so for her, what's really interesting is that like when I went through a severe depression in 2014, like I was just having a really hard time like fighting and believing that I was going to come out of this. And I just always believed that I would have a daughter. Like I just have been writing letters to her for years. So I had to believe that like God had maybe like planted that desire there. And so that's when I started writing kind of like I call them fight songs. And so they were words for her at the point where if she ever felt like life was falling apart, because I didn't know necessarily what words to give myself, but I knew that I could write words for her. And so that's just kind of how I've always really processed things, whether that's things for her or things for my readers, or people that I love. It's like I often find the words I need for myself in the words that I write for other people. So yeah, she has plenty of letters and I'll continue to write them. And instead of doing like a baby book where I fill in all the blanks, like I just created a notebook and have just started writing to her little notes since I got pregnant.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you wrote letters to your husband before you met him. And so when you gave him the box of letters the night before, what was his reaction?
I mean, he just was shocked, and I remember it was just kind of like a really tearful reaction, and I've been writing them ever since, and he's been writing letters to me, and so we have letters just kind of like all over the place.
Oh, now I like that. That's amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like for people, it's like you can build that into your story. You can start doing that immediately, you don't have to wait for that. Like you can just start, and it means so much to people when you actually do something tangible like that.
Yes. Yeah. And definitely with words. I mean, words have power. And, I always tell my husband, because my words of affirmation is like my top love language. And I always tell him, I'm like, yes, I do need to be told. I do need to be affirmed by you. He's like, you don't need that from other people. I'm like, I'm not married to other people. I'm not married to other people. And I always tell him, I'm like, I said, I don't know how to explain it. Just it's when it comes to love and being your wife and being with you, I do need to know that you're proud of me. I do need to know that you think I'm doing a good job. I said, it's my love language. I'm sorry. Like,
I totally get that.
Yeah. And so that's why I always say to him, yes, words matter, and what you say to people matter. It could be the difference between someone, like feeling really down or someone feeling like motivated to keep going. So it's just, there's the impact on like how we use our voice with people is so so important.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Now, you also do another little thing that I love receiving on Mondays, and it's the Monday Club.
The Monday Club, yes.
Yes, the Monday Club is like a devotion in my box, is what I said to you earlier.
I love that. I'm going to start using that.
And I look forward to it because like I get up at 6:30 and I already, like before I work out, like the email is already there and I read it. After, I read my devotionals in the morning and I pray and I read the Monday Club email and then I go and start my day. So why I think we probably all have an idea of maybe why the Monday Club, but let's talk about why'd you come to form this?
Like most things that I create, it's very accidental and it just sort of happens. But I felt like I was so sick of just demonizing Monday, like just kind of, not looking forward to Monday. And I'm one of those people that like, I think especially ever since I started working for myself, like I've loved Mondays, but I used to hate Mondays. And so I just thought, okay, this is the problem right here. The problem is that people don't look forward to Mondays and that a lot of people have that like Sunday scaries. And I just, in everything that I create, I try to solve a problem. I think that's really important for me. And so for me, I saw the problem and was like, okay, I'm going to create words to encourage people and inspire people. And it's going to come every Monday morning. And did I ever think that it would just expand into the community that it is? Like, absolutely not. But it's been a really cool way, especially like, to be able to encourage people and to feel like you have a community. And whenever I get to meet readers, I always feel like they're like, I'm in the Monday Club, I'm in your Monday Club. And I just always wanted some kind of like club, something to be a part of. And it used to actually be like super exclusive. So it used to be, there was a waiting list for it. And people would be like allowed in little by little, which I actually sometimes like want to go back to because I thought that was super fun, like it's like then you get like the celebration that you're in, you got into the club. So
exactly. Yes, I mean, yeah, and I definitely think that is so great because the Sunday scaries are real, and
yep.
And I have to say now, the one thing about working from home is that you don't have those because you're not like already saying goodbye to your weekend before you
It
actually
all
get
just kind of
to,
morphs
you're
into
still,
one another.
yeah. Now it's just like, well, it's Sunday and it's Sunday. Now we're gonna roll into Monday, but but Mondays still do have a different feeling because they're the start of I like to look at it as I'm like, it's a new opportunity. It's a fresh start. It's a chance.
Yeah.
It's a chance at a redo. You get to set some goals for the week, and you get to determine how you're gonna deal with it, how you're gonna crush them. And I think it's all through from your emails to just our attitudes, and we have to choose. Like that's why I'm very big in our the Globe Girl social media with like, you gotta choose happy, you gotta choose like positivity. So I try to affirm the night before I go to bed with, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna choose joy tomorrow, and then I pray about that, and and then I ask God to hold me accountable for that, and not don't let me up if I start complaining about something. So I think we have to also do our part too, in affirming how we want to feel.
Totally. I 100% agree with you.
Yeah. And so your book, Come Matter Here, which I am reading currently, you said it's a call to stop putting your life on hold until someday and start digging your heels into the here and now to build the life God has designed for you.
Yeah.
That is a true statement.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I feel like it's like one of those ones where sometimes I look at the book and I'm like, oh man, I thought I would have mastered that already, but I don't know that ever, I think that might always be like the challenge of my life, and it feels like I know that I'll write many more books, but I don't know if you can have a favorite book, baby, but I would say if I could have a favorite, I think Come Matter Here will always be it for me, and I don't want to speak too soon, but I love that book. I never get tired of that book. And I just love knowing people are reading it, because to me, it's like, it's such a good book. And I don't say that because I wrote it, but I really feel like God wrote it through me. I just really felt like I showed up every single day at 5 a.m. and he poured out the words into me. And so I never doubt the words because I don't feel like they're my words.
Yeah. No, I was telling you before, like it definitely is something I have it here in my hand right now, and I'm just looking through, like even in the early chapters, how I've got outlines, I've got sticky notes, I've got highlights on different things, and I'm going back and reading those things again, because and also I just like that in your writing style, it's just like you're talking to me. It's just so like, it's conversational almost, that I'm like, oh wait, is she in my head? Does she know? Does she know? And I love the prayers at the end. So that's why, and I, have started to still this prayer, pray that prayer, and then also write some, notes and things that I want to continue to do as I, so as I go back and reread, I'm holding myself accountable for the words that I committed to God after reading what He wrote through you. So I am just, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I love this book. It's just great.
I love it. Thank you.
Such an amazing book. But, it's so true. Like you said, there are a lot of people that are just, holding on to dreams. People are staying in jobs, not starting businesses because they are saying, I'll do it someday. And it's like, you got to do something now. So, like, you can't don't stand still, be present in this moment. And is, I definitely, I think like in one of the earlier chapters, you write about that, like being present in this moment.
Here now. And I feel like that's the hardest part, right? So we always want to be somewhere else, whether it is like in the future or like, especially like, I even noticed it, of course, with everything like with COVID, of just, oh, but like when this is over. And like when we were in March, we were like, oh, but imagine if this lasted till May. And now it's like, well, I don't even know where we are. Like I feel like we jumped from April to like all of a sudden we're almost at September.
Right.
And so that's been, yeah, like that is definitely like my daily call and like my daily posture of like, but how do I make this day count? Because I've been given this day. And and in everything that we see, like, you know, especially like with the Lord's Prayer, like he's like, give us this day our daily bread, just like this day. And I want to store bread for the future. I like want 5 years worth of bread and then I'll stop bothering God. But then I also know that I wouldn't need God if I had that 5 years worth of bread.
Right.
And so I think it's coming back to this, like, but I need you every single day. And I just, it's hard to live in that because we have something inside of us that makes us want to be independent. But like, it's so much sweeter when you can learn to be in the present moment and like, even if it doesn't look how you want it to look, like you can still cast a vision for like how you're going to make the most of this season.
Oh, those are amazing words. And yeah, that's, I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah.
Absolutely.
So now what's next for Hannah, you know, after Hannah goes on vacation?
Oh, Hannah is going on vacation. I'm so excited. Yeah, we have so many things that we're just kind of working in the pipelines right now. But my next book is coming out in January. So that will be out January 5th, which I'm excited about because I never met a new year that I didn't love.
Right.
So I'm really excited for that release. And we're just, you know, we're building different things. We're building out new courses. One of the things that I really want to dig into and give my readers more of in the months to come is just more tools for building out discipline and consistency in their daily lives. Like I already do that in the area of writing, but like I'm realizing that people need more in that area to learn how to consistently show up and own their days through the power of discipline and habits and rhythms and routines. And so that's kind of where I'm digging next because I'm really passionate about that stuff. And I think a lot of times, like I'll get a lot of messages from people being like, wait, like, how are you managing? Like, how are you working and you're a new mom and you're in COVID and it seems like you're doing just fine. Like, are you okay? And it's like, no, it's because I feel like I'm thriving in this season because I have dedicated so much of my life to building discipline that now that I have this discipline muscle strengthened, I'm able to thrive in a lot of different areas. And I so badly want that for people. I want people to feel like they are in balanced lives and rhythms and routines and all of that. And so that's kind of where we'll be headed next, I think. But, you know, I'm always open to whatever unexpected accidental thing happens.
Right. Well, that sounds fantastic. And I'm really, I look forward to your new book. And I do love that you have never met a new year that you didn't like. I like that.
I love a good new year. I love it. Even though I don't like believe in resolutions anymore, but I just really, I don't know. I think I love the new year though, because I feel like it's like, everyone, no matter how cynical they are, I think everyone has a little bit inside of them that thinks like maybe like I could change and be better. And like how beautiful is that we're all doing that at the same time.
Yeah, people still have hope. And
exactly.
Yeah,
that's what I love.
Yeah, it's hope. So last, please tell the audience where they can find you online.
They can find me at all things Hannah Brencher. Social media, Hannah Brencher. HannahBrencher.com is my blog. That's where I love showing up and hanging out with people in the comments section. So yeah, and then if they want to join More Love Letters, that's all More Love Letters. MoreLoveLetters.com and More Love Letters on social media.
Fantastic. Well, Hannah, it has definitely been a pleasure talking to you today, and I thank you so much for coming and spending some time with me on the podcast.
Absolutely, I've loved it.
All right, well, guys, stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast, and thank you again to Hannah for joining us today. What a great story of using our words to be a comfort to others. So, I'm going to challenge you all to go to the More Love Letters website and pin one letter per month for the rest of this year to someone who needs it most. Thank you all again for joining me today. Again, like I've said in the past, you can find us online at glowupgirl.com. Please drop me an email at hello@glowupgirl.com and give me any feedback, comments, or, pass along anybody who you think would be a great fit for our show. Also, follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We have a new Facebook group that we love for you to join. You can find it under Glow Up Girl. So come on in, invite your friends, and join us so that you can receive new news first. And before I go, as always, I'd like to leave you with a little glow inspiration. I'll leave you with a quote from Joyce Meyer. Words are containers for power. You choose what kind of power they carry. Until next time, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care.